Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Imam Nawawi, in his collection of 40 hadiths, narrates an acceptable and good hadith, which is also found in the collection of Ibn Majah and Al-Bayhaqi, from Ibn Abbas, that the Prophet ﷺ said, Allah has pardoned my ummah for my sake, for their mistakes and forgetfulness, and for what they are forced to do. This is a very important principle of Islam, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has issued a pardon and is merciful on behalf of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ for the entire Islamic community. The ummah are all those people from the time of the Prophet ﷺ until the Day of Judgment who believe in him, acknowledge Allah, and acknowledge the Prophet ﷺ. They are his ummah, and so by their belief in Allah and the Prophet, they are part of this promise that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has pardoned them for their mistakes and forgetfulness. So it's a very beautiful message that the Prophet ﷺ has given us here. The attitude that a Muslim should have is that following the laws that are revealed to us in the Quran and Sunnah is a must. It's a necessary part of our faith. No person could truly claim to be a Muslim or a believer or to have true faith and yet ignores what is commanded and what is prohibited in the Quran and in the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. There is no faith then in Islam without works, without good deeds. However, having laws upon us, having laws that we must follow as Muslims, having things which are commanded and prohibited, is not a cause for us to despair or a cause for us to have mental suffering and anxiety, worrying that Allah is going to judge us harshly on the Day of Judgment. Because Allah is all merciful and just. He is not capricious, He is not vengeful, but He is full of love for us. If we will sincerely try to do our best, we can trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's mercy and love. Allah only judges us for our willful intent, and He pardons us for our human error, because He, of course, is our Creator, and He knows our weaknesses even better than we know ourselves. And so He has pardoned us for mistakes, and He has pardoned us for forgetfulness. Mistakes here, the word khata'a, are those things which are not intended, things that we may do accidentally. We did not intend. Sometimes we intend to do something good, but there are unforeseen consequences. Sometimes we think we know what we're doing, and we're trying to do good, and actually evil results. Now, that does not, of course, mean that we have not been negligent. If we are purposely negligent, and we fail to take those kind of precautions that are required, it's not any longer simply an accident, but we have to assume responsibility for our deeds. But simply making a mistake unintentionally is not the same as a sin. And some people get mixed up between the word khata'a here, which is a mistake, an error, an unintentional, accidental thing, and a khati'a, which is a sin, which must be accompanied with knowledge and intention. And so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, for the sake of the Prophet ﷺ, has forgiven us in advance any mistakes or accidental things that we may do. So the Prophet ﷺ explained, for example, that a judge who is in a court judging between two parties, for example, or a scholar who is required to make a judgment about what is permitted or prohibited in Islam, in a case of something which is not clearly found in a text in the Quran or Sunnah, is required to perform ijtihad. They must make a scholarly effort to research an issue, whether it is a court case or a new issue that has arisen in society that must be judged based on Islamic criterion. And so they perform ijtihad, or make an effort in researching an issue according to the Quran and Sunnah and the Islamic jurisprudence. Then if that judge or that scholar makes the correct decision, they receive a double reward for their effort and for actually coming to the correct result. But even if they're mistaken, they're rewarded for their effort and are not punished. So this is part of Allah's mercy, that if we make an effort to know the difference between what is right and what is wrong, and we intend to do what is right and even make a mistake, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will forgive us for that mistake. This does not mean then that we can simply have a good intention and go about making mistakes left and right and become sources of harm to others. But we have the requirement to actually seek to know the difference between right and wrong and not be negligent of these matters. Not every Muslim must be a scholar. People are on different levels. All of us must know the minimum of conduct. It's not possible for you to be a Muslim and be ignorant of the fact that Islam requires you to be honest, fair, tell the truth, not steal, not murder, not commit adultery. Every Muslim must know these things. It's not an excuse that I'm a Muslim but know nothing about the Quran or the Sunnah or what is forbidden or what is prohibited. Unless, of course, that person does not have access to correct knowledge. But at least we have to make an effort to find that knowledge. And then that effort, even for a common Muslim, is equivalent to the ijtihad that a scholar makes. When that common Muslim makes an effort to find correct information according to his or her ability, intellectual ability, or access to correct information. But if we make mistakes, Allah will forgive us, and that mistake is not a sin. However, if our mistake sometimes results in harm coming to others, I'm in a traffic accident, for example, and maybe injure another person or damage their property unintentionally, I have not committed a sin against Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but I have harmed somebody else due to my own action, and because it was an accident, I will not be punished, but I must compensate the other person, including, of course, accidentally killing a person which is not intentional. That is not murder, but I have still harmed that person and must pay a penalty for what I have done. Also, the Prophet ﷺ said that for his sake, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has forgiven us for forgetfulness. Now, in Arabic, the word for forgetfulness is nisyan. And nisyan is very close to the word insan, which is human being. And so people have speculated on the closeness of these two terms. There is a relationship between being a human and being forgetful. That forgetfulness is part and parcel of being a human being. And of course, it is true that all of us forget. Even the Prophet ﷺ had a forgetful episode that is very well known when in his prayer he forgot a portion of the prayer. And so on this occasion, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed to us the correct procedure if we forget something in our prayer, how to make up for what we have forgotten. And so forgetfulness is a basic human trait. It is once again not to be used as an excuse. For example, the times of prayer. I may be busy with an important project and forget one of my prayers. For example, if I'm in a certain location, I may not hear the adhan or the call to prayer from a mosque. I may not be near any mosque. I may not be near any device that may tell me, a time-keeping device, for example. Or I may just get busy and forget. And there is nobody to remind me of the time for prayer. And so that prayer becomes a duty upon me as soon as I remember, and then I must immediately go and do that prayer. And so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgives us for our forgetfulness and pardons us until that point in which we remember, and then we become responsible. But we cannot use that as an excuse. We cannot be negligent. For example, if I'm in a society where I will not be near mosques and I will not hear a public call to prayers, for example, to take for myself a modern electric device which will remind me of times of prayers, an alarm or some other type of device, or ask other people to wake me up, for example, from sleep, if possible, that I may pray. I cannot needlessly, without excuse, delay or neglect prayers and say, oh, I forgot, and I should not be punished. For example, in fasting, if one is fasting, for example, in the month of Ramadan, and accidentally, out of forgetfulness, drinks or eats something. Of course, it's our habit at different times and places to eat and drink. And especially sometimes in the beginning of the month when we are starting to get into our new schedule in Ramadan for eating and drinking, we may go up to the water fountain that we are. Sometimes, for example, we walk into a building and we see a water fountain, we automatically go up and drink. Or we walk in the kitchen, we automatically grab something and eat it. And so we may do that, forgetfulness. And so the Prophet ﷺ explained to us that the person who is eating or drinking is being fed and given drink by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so as long as they don't remember, they're still fasting. And so as soon as they remember, what do? Do they go and spit up the food or something? No. As soon as they remember, they cease eating and drinking and continue their fast, and they have the reward from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Once again though, if forgetfulness means that I have forgotten some of my duties, I have a responsibility to make up for those duties. If it makes that I have harmed others by my forgetfulness or violated somebody else's right, I must make up for those things. This hadith does not absolve me from that. Finally, the Prophet ﷺ gave the example of compulsion, being forced to do things. There's a famous example from the time of the Prophet ﷺ of Ammar bin Yasir. He was a slave, and his mother and father, Sumayya and Yasir, were slaves. And Yasir and Sumayya were tortured to death for the sake of Islam and refused to give up Islam and were killed and tortured. And all this right in front of their son Ammar. But Ammar, when he saw what happened, and he was also about to be tortured, under that torture, he gave up Islam and he rejected Islam, even though as the Quran was revealed, in his case, his heart was full of faith and belief. So if you believe in Islam and you believe in the difference between right and wrong, but are forced at threat of death or harm coming to you, you are excused by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. All of this for the sake of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So we should, of course, be thankful for that and respect the Prophet and do our best. Jazakum Allahu khairan. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah wa barakatuhu.
Oh